If you had someone in your class who did nothing but go to orgies and get high all day and barely went to class at all, and yet assigned themselves the grade of an A, and they were in your major and they did that consistently, would that cause you to move to neutral?
It's their life and they're hurting their own learning. It has nothing to do with me or my learning or my life. So if that's how they want to live, like, it's a free country, they can make their own decisions for themselves.
So the concept of fairness would not play into the calculus?
I used to struggle a lot with the concept of fairness, but life inherently isn't fair. So it's
True.
like, if they want to cheat their way through life, that's on them. Like, cool.
Okay, young lady, where are we today?
We're at Williams College in Massachusetts.
A fine institution, I may add. What is your major?
Computer science and psychology.
Excellent. And what is your major?
I am biology neuroscience.
Well, that seems very difficult to me. That seems like a real subject. And who are you, sir?
Warren Smith, and I don't have a major.
You're the man, the myth, the legend. Okay, so today we are going to do the claim. Students should be able to assign themselves their own grades. 3, 2, 1, move. All right. Tell him your best reason for why you're on the agree. Why should students be able to assign themselves? Tell him.
I think that grades are a way of comparing yourself by value when external circumstances aren't the best way to determine your value as a person. So I think there's a lot things that are way more deeper than just a number on a piece of paper.
What do you mean by external circumstances? You mean a professor who has expertise in a subject who tells you how much you know?
Oh, no. That me as a person, my value isn't a number on a paper. It's how I treat other people outside. It's how much I want to learn. It's how much hard work I'm putting into a subject. And I think trying to put that on a scale of 0 to 100 is wrong.
Okay. Do you agree with her?
I do agree. But
Tell him.
Oh, okay. I agree, but I would like to add that the goal of education is learning, not a number on a paper. And so what learning might look like for different people can't necessarily be standardized, which is why assigning self-grades can be important. However, I'm not at strongly agree because oftentimes to learn, not everyone necessarily has the intrinsic motivation. So it can be helpful to have like the external motivation of having that benchmark of a grade. So,
how do you know you're actually learning and not delusional? That's a legit question.
if the professors or teachers are providing you with material and you're taking the time and effort to investigate the material, then active learning has to be happening. However, in terms of assigning your own grades, someone could not do any of the reading and give themselves an A, but then they're not achieving the goal of learning. So there would be no point of that in the first place. So I feel like by assigning self-grades, it actually places greater emphasis on intrinsic motivation, which is so much more important for the long term. After school, like the specific content we're learning might not be as important. What is important is having your own motivation and being able to find the will to do things and to learn on your own, because in
it's
life
intrinsic motivation.
You're not going to be graded in the real world.
Okay. You're not going to be graded in the real world. Okay. Tell them why you're standing on the strongly disagree.
I agree with everything that you did say, but I think that grades are the method for assessment. So taking all that as true, you're more than your grade. Motivation is important. Active learning is really the goal. But we assign grades as a way to kind of assess that whole process. If that becomes a subjective process, as you said, it's going to lose all its value because anyone could fudge it and cheat, really. So as a modality, as a way of doing it, the methodology itself would be deeply flawed.
Do you have a response to him?
I definitely agree with that. I personally am not on strongly agree because of those types of reasons, but I don't necessarily agree with the self-grading aspect, so that's why I'm not totally all the way over there. But the overall argument of grades in general and being the assessment of people, I think is not the best way of understanding and learning and being what education is about, kind of like what Maya was saying. So I definitely agree with what you're saying, and I think there could be a different system other than self-grading, but other than only a teacher and numbers and tests and those kind of things.
Okay, so a couple of things came up. I'm going to ask a new claim, and you just move to a mat that is best calibrated to your beliefs. A university should never make its students feel bad about themselves. Move. Why do you disagree?
Well, I think I disagree because of the term never. Like, if someone is racist, homophobic, sexist, like, in any way, just, like, if you murder someone, you should feel bad about that. So I think I just strongly I disagree with the term never. But I think if that was amended to most of the time, then I would go to strongly agree.
Is assigning someone a bad grade, do you think that could make someone feel bad about themselves if you assign them a bad grade?
Yes, but then in that case, I don't think it's the university making the student feel bad about themselves. I think it could be the student, because if you feel bad about a grade, like, that means that you're internalizing a grade to mean something about your character, when in actuality, those things should be separate. Just because you performed bad one day, just because you did poorly on a test doesn't make you a bad person, and you shouldn't feel bad about it.
What if it's not about one's character, but if it's about one's intellectual ability? If a student consistently receives poor grades, can we make an inference about their intellect?
I think not necessarily, because different people learn differently. It could be the material, could be the teaching style. It could be that they have external circumstances in their life that's preventing them from getting good grades in that period of time. So that's why I think, going back to the previous question, grades are volatile, not always the best benchmark.
I'm just going to spend a little more time because I find this fascinating. So, are all people who matriculate into the university of equal intelligence? Yes or no?
Yes. I think it depends.
Really?
It depends how you define intelligence, and I think especially at a place like this, everyone is intelligent in their own ways and has their own things to offer. There's a reason that they're here. So I think intelligence is really hard to measure, but in my personal definition, I'd say yes, everyone is.
So then grades would have no purpose whatsoever.
I mean, like I said before, I think there needs to be some sort of extrinsic motivation for certain people. And sometimes I think that can be helpful. But yeah, I mean, like Anna was talking about, grades are kind of a hard topic because they might not always be the best benchmark.
So a university should never make students feel bad about themselves. Is assigning a student who does not do well a bad grade, say a D, and that makes the student feel bad about themselves, would that violate the idea of the university should never make a student feel bad about themselves?
I think that getting assigned a grade is different than the university making a student feel bad about themselves. I think the university should implement a lot of external help to a student, and I think if all of those things are in order, and if a student just happens to get a bad grade, I think that's not the university's fault. I think that's a little bit deeper than that, but then also at the same time, it depends like how the teacher makes the student feel about their bad grade. Or
what if the teacher doesn't make the student feel anything, they just get a D?
Right, which sucks and makes me feel bad. Like, I honestly have struggled a bit with the grades here at Williams, and like, it's hard being a student here and taking hard classes, but I don't blame that on the university. I don't think that's the university's fault. So that was my problem with this claim, was that the university should never make the students feel bad, because it's not Williams' fault that someone gets a bad grade. It's honestly life. But I don't know.
Do you have a response to her or a comment?
I'm curious why you're standing on strongly agree then with it, because I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. So what I don't like about that claim is basically the university like implementing ways that, like, how a student might feel bad about themselves because of a bad grade depends on how the university talks about grades and makes that culture. So I think it depends on how the university like organizes the culture around what bad grades mean, and how, like, sometimes here feeling like, I don't know, if in every class a university had everyone that got a 100 stand up, everyone that got in the 90s stand up, like, if like in the classroom, like there's certain ways that a university could really make a student feel bad for getting a bad grade. And I think that would not be good. So I strongly agree that a university should never make students feel bad for trying their hardest in learning. So I think grading is just like a different part of this conversation. And I think like, that's, I don't know.
Okay. Are all students who come here of equal intelligence?
I disagree with that. I think everyone is intelligent in their own way. There's so many different kinds of intelligence.
Is there anybody who comes here who's stupid?
No.
Is there anybody who comes here who's of average intelligence?
Honestly, I think to be at Williams College, you have to be above average.
Okay, so most people here, let's say everybody is above average, just accept that claim as true by fiat. That must mean that there are some people who are far above average, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then the people who are only average, if intelligence is an accurate reflection of grades, then those people ought to receive lower grades than the people who are just like super smart, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes. I guess so.
Yeah. So if there's anything wrong with my reasoning, let me know. So that must mean that there would have to be some grade variance and grade distribution in the distribution of grades.
Yes.
So what can we infer from that?
So as someone that is probably more on the average scale of the intelligence at Williams College, I can say that it sucks being on this side, but I have a lot of appreciation for the people that are above that intelligence. And so I think grades are important to, I guess, understand where you are, understand where you can learn more. I think the comparison shouldn't happen at all. I think no comparison should happen. I wish
no comparison.
Literally no comparison.
What about, should there be comparisons you guys have a football team or something?
Yeah, we do.
Should you guys have football games with people and just not score any of the games?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, why are there comparisons in sports but not comparisons academically in terms of grades?
So there are comparisons in sports. I play a sport here, and honestly,
What do you play?
I play women's ice hockey. Love the team. Love it. It is
What's the name of the team?
Williams Eves.
Go Eves.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So explain to me then. So there are points in ice hockey, right?
Yes.
And so, is there a parallel between points in ice hockey and grades?
In a way, I think where my comparison more so lies for me is a big part of sports is playing time and how much you're going to be able to go out there and contribute for your team. And I've personally struggled a bit with that throughout my college experience.
Okay.
So that honestly is what, that made me more think of the university side of, just the comparison between other people.
Okay.
It can make you feel
All right.
crap about yourself, even though we are, average or above average intelligence.
Okay. All right, I'm going to jump. Here's a new claim.
Okay.
It matters to me to go to a good university. Move. It matters to me to go to a good university. Slightly agree, strongly agree. Okay, next claim. Grades are required to know if a university is any good. Move. You disagree?
Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of the Ivies, they have extreme grade inflation. And just because you're graduating all these Ivies with a 4.0 and able to get into grad school, it doesn't necessarily mean that the quality of your education is better.
Okay, let me ask you a new claim. Tomorrow, Williams College changes its policy and to ungrading, and everybody can assign themselves their own grades. The reputation of the university would be the same. Move. Within 2 years, the reputation of the university would be the same. Why do you strongly disagree?
Because all methods of objective measurement would no longer exist. So I understand the proclivity for people to be like, oh, I dislike competition. I think many people do, but the very act of getting into a college like Williams is the result of whether it's tests or grades, a reputation of some kind, some system of measurement. So if we pull that system of measurement out completely, it would cease to be functional.
Do you agree with him?
Slightly.
Where's your point of disagreement? Tell him.
I think that there's way more than grades that objectify a person and show their strengths and show their intelligence. So honestly,
Their academic intelligence.
yeah, I think there's a lot that show academic intelligence other than grades.
Like what?
Like how you engage with the community, how your extracurriculars shape you, how you're a leader to your community. And I think that a lot of the people that get into Williams have these extracurriculars that show that.
How would that be assessed?
I think simply just putting it in your Common App, like when you're applying to Williams, I think like sharing those stories and sharing that intelligence, it objectively is just anyone that's admitting, people can easily tell like who was able to do that and who wasn't, I guess.
If you're an employer and you look at a college and everybody assigns themselves their own grades, and the mean grade out of the university is 3.999999, would you be more likely to take a student from that institution or another institution in which professors assign students their grades?
I think if you're saying like for any college, then probably the latter, but I think you're disregarding like Williams College as an institution.
What are the metrics by which someone gets into Williams College?
I mean, I'm not in the admissions office, but
Well, okay, so what if in high schools people could assign themselves their own grades, and then people could self-identify as anything they want in terms of their own their SAT scores? So like I could self-identify as a person who gets 800s, and I'm grading myself as an A throughout. Would there be a discerning mechanism for Williams to decide? Would it be personal testimonies? Would it be oppression variables in one's past? If in high school people assign themselves their own grades and they don't take SATs, how would Williams know who to take?
I mean, I think broadening this question to high school is a little bit of an extrapolation, especially since like I do agree that there needs to be some sort of standardized measurement, just because like a college can't look at thousands and thousands of applications and make that decision. But once you've narrowed down to a small school like Williams where there's only 2,000 people, I feel like it's a lot easier, especially with our history and the fact that a lot of people coming out of jobs from Williams like go through extensive interview processes, application processes that take way more into account than just your GPA.
Do you agree with what she said?
Yes.
Do you agree with what she said?
I still think we need grades as a sense of measurement, though, but I agree with many of the things that you're alluding to, but we still need that underlying system.
Okay, go back to neutral. So let's go back to the original claim. Students should be able to assign themselves their own grades. Move. Did you change lines?
I did.
Why?
Because I don't think that is necessarily the best way to do what I agree with, which is changing the grading system. So in the beginning, I just kind of was more agreeing with the changing the grading system part, but hearing other people's reasonings about standardization and those types of things, I think I took a step back.
Was there any argument in particular that caused you to move?
I think just that there needs to be an underlying standard in a way, but I definitely still agree with all the things like that I was saying.
Okay. And you're on the same line?
I am on the same line.
Okay, what would cause you to move to the agree or strongly agree?
I think like self-grading needs to be in tandem with something else. Mm-hmm. I think just saying self-grading, period, and not elaborating at all is what leads me to be on slightly agree and not, like I would need more information.
What year are you in?
I'm a junior.
If at the end of this year you felt you really screwed up on a course, but now you know you have a good GPA, but you really screwed up on a course and you thought you deserved a C, what grade would you give yourself?
Probably a C.
Okay.
I have like degraded myself on things that have been self-graded before.
Okay. What would cause you to move to the neutral? What would you have to hear?
If everything was completely self-graded, I would definitely head that way.
What do you mean?
If there was like absolutely no backup methods, no support, like just because the course might be self-graded doesn't mean that I don't think that there should be like tests or essays or feedback from the professor. I think like you should still be able to take tests and see how much knowledge you know, how much information you're gaining, whether or not you're actually learning things. I just don't necessarily think those should go into your final.
If you had someone in your class who did nothing but go to orgies and get high all day and barely went to class at all, and yet assigned themselves the grade of an A, and they were in your class, they were in your major, and they did that consistently, would that cause you to move to neutral?
It's their life and they're hurting their own learning. It has nothing to do with me or my learning or my life. So if that's how they want to live, like it's a free country, they can make their own decisions for themselves.
So the concept of fairness would not play into the calculus.
I used to struggle a lot with the concept of fairness, but life inherently isn't fair. So it's
True.
like if they want to cheat their way through life, that's on them. Like, cool. I
Cool.
know that.
All right, cool. What would cause you to move to disagree?
For universities to cease in their value or the necessity to go to a university?
Students to assign themselves their own grades. What would cause you to just say,
To say it's okay?
yeah,
The entire purpose of colleges would have to cease, like for it to, because otherwise you have students that are spending a lot of money going into debt for this, and their entire experience is going to be affected by. I understand the proclivity that people want to feel like they'll be honest, but as you alluded to, there's a few people that will cheat, right? And that affects the entire university's reputation, and that does affect everyone at the university.
and is the reason for that because the employer won't be able to distinguish between who cheated and those who did not cheat? So that undermines the trust in the institution.
That's one component of it. I also think just its ability to function, its ability, if we lose objectivity and senses of measurement of any kind in an effort to be fair and for everyone to feel like they're having equal input, it always ends badly.
Did that cause you to move?
What he just said?
Yeah.
No.
That caused you to move?
No.
Okay. Oh, good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.